Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. We are continuing with Darren Leathers in part 2, and Darren is talking about what it means to be an effective pharmaceutical sales rep and what he looks at as a hiring manager in oncology when he's thinking about putting someone on his team, and also what he used to look at in different, Darren's been a hiring manager for a number of years, so he hasn't only hired in the oncology space, he's hired in the primary care space, oncology space, and different specialty spaces. And he talks about what is evaluated when considering anyone that wants to get a pharmaceutical sales position. This is great information. If you were able to tune in last week, you got a little bit of insight into who Darren was. This week, we're going to get more into what he looks at, what he considers, and what every person that's going for a pharmaceutical sales position should be thinking about. Regardless if you're new to the industry and you're trying to land a pharmaceutical sales position, or if you're a seasoned pharmaceutical sales rep that wants to do something a little different or work with a different organization, Darren goes into the detail of what you need to make sure you're doing and what you should be considering. Before we get into that interview, I just want to give a quick shout out to two students of mine that have recently graduated my program. This is Melanie and Andrew, and I want to give a shout out to both of you. One of you got into a medical device company called ConMed. Congratulations. You really showed up through the program, and you can see you got results, and I'm so proud of you for making that happen. And another one of you got into the biotech company called Roche, and you've always wanted to be in pharmaceutical sales, and Melanie, I'm talking to you. And I'm proud of you as well. And you guys really showed up in the program, and you can see you got the results. You made things happen. So congratulations. So I hope everyone enjoys the interview with Darren, part 2. And thank you again for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. All right. So now I'm gonna change it up a little bit with a question that I actually get a lot, and that comes into the educational aspect of a great rep, a great candidate. You see now that a lot of people, most everyone in the industry has a college degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no? Would you say that anyone still gets hired that does not have a college degree in the pharmaceutical space in 2020?
Sam, I've been in this industry 27 years, and I don't know one person that has
So that
entered
answers
into the
that.
industry and has not had a college degree.
All right. So that
And
answers
I don't
that.
think that that's changing.
Okay. So let's talk about this MBA then.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on the MBA? I've met representatives that had an MBA and were representatives. Nothing really changed.
Sure.
I've met representatives that got an MBA and their career literally took off.
Mm-hmm.
What's your perspective on the MBA, where it fits, and what you encourage for your team?
Sure. So obviously, like I said, having a bachelor's degree is first and foremost, and specifically in oncology, we won't even entertain anyone just coming out of college. You need many, many years of experience before you actually even enter into oncology. But coming into the general pharma world, it's a little bit, easier to have limited experience in sales to penetrate the market. But with regards to an MBA, it really depends on what an individual wants to do. I think, as I mentioned before, the first thing you have to do in a sales environment is really about, are you putting up the sales numbers? That's very objective. That's what you're measured on.
Right.
And that's really what's going to get your ticket to the dance. I don't care how many, degrees you have.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not performing in the sales capacity and that's what you're assigned to do, you're not going to advance your career. And the MBA is the credential.
Not going to save
help
you.
that.
Right.
Now, if you are a person that is wanting to pursue different things within the organization and move up to some of the executive levels, or go into marketing, or go into different departments within the organization outside of sales, or like I said, executive sales leadership, that you're managing a broader group of people, then certainly, that credential helps.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I think when it comes to sales, the credential itself does not carry that much more water. but it does make you more attractive, certainly if you're interviewing with an organization and I'm looking at an individual that has a successful track record in sales and they have an MBA, and I'm looking at an individual that has a successful track record in sales and doesn't have an MBA,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to probably look more favorable to that person with an MBA for a couple of reasons. One, they obviously have different learnings and knowledge that the individual that doesn't have it has, and those skills and learnings could be maybe transferable to make them a better contributor to the team. That's one.
Got it.
And two, also gaining that MBA just says that this person is making those sacrifices to continue to increase their level of education,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows that level of commitment that one makes to actually pursue that and not stop just at the bachelor's degree. So that gives me
Mm,
a sense of kind of the drive that this person has. As I
I
mentioned
see.
to you, one of the
Yeah.
big characteristics that I look for is drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having that MBA after they've already got their bachelor's says that they have more drive to do more.
Got it. Got it. Now that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So then in this environment with hiring freezes going on, with us talking about sales performance, leveling the playing field, you've seen, like everyone else, that there are sales reps that have been laid off, right?
Hmm.
There
Yep.
are smaller pharma companies that have not been able to sustain the sales force because of the current environment.
Hmm.
So sales performance might be, I don't want to say missing, but there might be a gap,
Hmm.
maybe because
Hmm.
someone was laid off early this year, or
Hmm.
maybe because the company was struggling towards right when they were about to be laid off. In this environment, when you get candidates, how are you taking that into account?
Yeah, and in this environment, that's totally understandable. And oftentimes, and again, in the pharmaceutical industry, we are hiring most people that are also in the pharmaceutical industry. It's rare that we're hiring someone outside of the industry. And if there are a lot of layoffs, oftentimes fellow industry members know that there was a layoff with another company. This company
Mm-hmm.
downsized, so it's clear that it is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I still will entertain someone that has been laid off and
Mm-hmm.
see if there's a gap in their resume and if they can explain why they were laid off. And I knew that there was some history of a layoff, then that's certainly perfectly acceptable.
Gotcha.
When it comes to a lot of different jobs, however, though, in a time where there were not a lot of layoffs, I would not want to see a person switching a lot of jobs and being a big job hopper. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
me personally.
Right, right.
I think some people are a little bit more liberal to that these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I like to see a consistency of a work history
Mm-hmm.
with a lot without a lot of gaps. And the reason for that is because hiring someone is a time consuming process and it's a very expensive process.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see someone that is going from one job to another job every year and a half, every 2 years, why would I have confidence that this person is going to stay on board with my organization and not leave? And I have to start this process over again. Because again, if you think about it, Sam, when you take on a new role, it takes you about a year to really understand what
Right,
to do, how to do it, how to navigate
right,
through the systems, the
right.
process, the customer base, et cetera. It takes a while. And so once that person comes to a point where they're up and running, and then they decide to leave 6 months later or a year later,
Mm-hmm.
then your investment, is pretty much down the drain. So I take pause in looking at resumes that have a lot of gaps or a lot of jobs, and would not be my first group of candidates that I would look at.
Right.
However, if I knew that there were some downsizing, some layoffs within the industry, and this person had prior to that a good history of a track record,
Mm-hmm.
then I certainly would entertain them.
Got it. Earlier, you said that in this space, it's more pharma hiring pharma. You're speaking specifically to oncology looking to hire pharma, right? Or are you saying in general, you believe that pharma looks to hire pharma as opposed to people from a different industry?
Yeah. I was probably speaking more from an oncology standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
In oncology, typically you're going to get most people with some level of oncology
Right.
experience, some level of specialty experience,
Mm-hmm.
some level of, medical device account management type of experience. Most people in the oncology environment have probably had 20, 15, 20 plus years in the medical industry.
Right. Right.
So that's what I meant about kind of pharma to pharma. However, in the general pharma
Mm-hmm.
arena,
Mm-hmm.
especially just bridging into general pharma, I think if a person just has some sales experience,
Any type,
they
right?
certainly can bridge over into pharmaceuticals much,
Mm-hmm.
much easier. As I mentioned, that was my path and what
Right.
I needed to do. And most companies are going to say you need to have some level of experience before you come in. Now, that being said, when I was managing people in a general pharma kind of an arena, I typically didn't want to hire someone that had more than 5 years sales experience with another company.
Speak to
And
that.
and the reason for that is because, for instance, if I was looking at someone from Pfizer who was wanting to come over when I was managing at GSK, well, what can GSK offer you that Pfizer is not giving you?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a mentality of how you've been brought up in Pfizer. What what are you going to bring a little bit differently to here to GSK that you're not really getting at Pfizer, if you would,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really, and I think there are a lot of different, habits ingrained when you've been with another company for a long period of time and then transferring over to a like company.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't that keen on looking at candidates that have a long track record of or history with another company to come into another general farmer role. I liked someone that may have had 2 years, 3 years. They were able to get their feet wet into
Mm-hmm.
pharmaceuticals. They haven't formed any, bad habits, if you would.
Yeah.
They haven't been brainwashed to drink the Kool-Aid of that company yet.
Right. Right.
They're passionate about what they're doing now. They understand kind of the market dynamics, what the industry entails, and now they're just ready to take their career to the next level. So does that
Got it.
make sense?
Yeah, that does. That does. It actually brings up another question. So, in your opinion, and not even, I'm not going to ask you to even be hypothetical about it. I'm going to rely on what you've seen and experienced. What would you say was the number one thing that someone outside of the industry did, besides their performance, outside of the industry did, that just made you say, wow, I really want to consider this candidate?
I think that one, they've done their homework like nobody's business. I mean, they researched the company, they have a clear understanding of what the industry is about. They've read books on the pharmaceutical industry.
Mm,
They've actually talked to, a physician, maybe their own local physician that they have, their family physician, to ask them about the pharmaceutical industry, what it
sure,
entails, what interactions that physician has with representatives, and do you have representatives you can put me in touch with? That
sure.
person would then reach out to someone in the pharmaceutical industry to try to gain an understanding of what the industry is about. This
Right,
person would then try to spend a day and ask, could they spend a day with someone on my team to actually gain some insights of what the pharmaceutical industry is about.
right.
So they did all those different steps to really say, my mind is made up. This is where I want to be. I know I can do this job and I've done my homework. And again, it comes back to that grit that I talked about and that
Mm-hmm.
drive to do more, to do more, to try to separate yourself. So those would be things that I've seen people do in the past that gave me a little bit more favorability to that individual to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can see pulling this candidate into the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, every candidate that you look at, it's a risk. It can be a candidate that has 5 years of experience or a candidate that has 0 years of experience in
Sure,
pharmaceuticals,
sure.
right? And each candidate is a risk. I just look at them on paper and I interview them and I kind of make my decisions based on that interview and their experiences, et cetera. And I'm trying to mitigate the risk. Who's going to come into this role and on my team that's going to be able to contribute to the team and to
Mm-hmm.
the business and get through a learning curve much faster
Mm-hmm.
and start to perform much faster.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there are no guarantees to that because I've hired some people and they didn't turn out to do well.
Right,
And
right.
I've hired some people that had somewhat limited experience and have done extremely well.
Sure.
And just for instance, even here in oncology, I've been with oncology division for 4.5 years.
Hmm.
And typically, when you hear about oncology roles, it always comes with a requisite of must have 5 years of oncology experience or something along those lines in
Right.
the requisition. And out of maybe the seven or so people that I've hired over the last few years,
Yeah.
I've only hired one person with oncology experience.
That says
I've
a lot,
hired,
actually.
I've hired
Yeah.
most people that have had account experience
Sure.
in medical sales, specialty sales,
Sure.
and it's worked out really, really well. So it
Hmm.
really just depends on what that hiring manager is looking for. But
Hmm.
again, at the end of the day, I'm trying to say, how am I going to mitigate my risk and who's going to be the less risky for me? And that's what I try to do to make my decisions on who I hire.
That's excellent. All right. Well, we're gonna come to a close here pretty soon, but let me ask you a few more questions.
Yep.
What is the best thing about working in the oncology space, in your opinion, of course?
Yeah. And not to sound, cliche or what a lot of people may say about the pharmaceutical industry,
Yeah.
it truly is about the value of medicine that we bring to patients with cancer. And when I was in just general pharmaceuticals, we would say that as well. But I think with oncology, it truly, truly is very, very different. You have a pride in that the drugs that you are selling are truly extending patient lives.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you go into an oncology office and you walk into an office, and many of those patients sitting there won't be alive within 5 years. Greater than 50% of these patients will have moved on. And
Mm,
knowing that you are actually helping create memories for these patients, the drugs that you're providing to these customers, and how you're
yeah.
educating them, you're really helping create memories. And it's more than just selling the drug. You're talking to every person in that office that is touching either the patient or touching any of the financials that come about on how to make sure the patients can get the drug financially. So it's about account management. It's about really doing good work to increase memories for patients. That's what I really like about oncology.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right, Darren, tell us this. If there was some piece of advice you could give your former self back when you started with Smith Klein Beecham, what would it be?
That's a good question. I would say increase and make sure that you broaden your networks of especially sponsors or champions within your organization. And I think one thing that I probably depended on was, just my abilities and what I could do to prove myself to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to get a couple of champions to
Hmm.
support me, to help me navigate through, or help me navigate my career and get to different roles.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, some of those champions that you have move on, and there are new people in line. If you haven't created that network of champions to help ally for you
Yeah.
and help support you, then it makes your path a little bit more challenging. So I would say that I would have to make sure that you increase your network and maintain those networks and continue to always leverage those networks, because they come and they can go, and
Yeah.
it's important to increase the people that you can engage with.
Excellent. Excellent. And what about your long-term goals? Have you thought about where you want to be 5 years out? And
Yeah, quite honestly, Sam, at this stage of my career,
yeah.
maybe 6 years out, I'm looking to retire.
Oh,
So,
he's actually it's coming
yeah,
to a
so
close, man.
yeah, so I'm actually looking forward to hopefully retire. And what I mean by that is retire from the industry of working in big corporate America. I would certainly like
Sure.
to do some management consulting or get on some boards or something along those lines
Sure.
to still
Sure.
stay active and participate in this industry in some fashion. So
Sure.
something along those lines. And right now, that's kind of what I'm looking at as kind of the finish line to
Okay.
ending my career, and whatever comes up in between that, if it's something desirable to help me continue to learn and grow, it will be something I certainly could pursue and will pursue. But
Excellent.
the days of trying to chase something, is it's not quite there like it used to be. It's
Hey,
now looking
speaking
at the
truth.
looking at the the retirement land.
Right. No, I get it. I get it. All right. So then what's the last piece of advice you'd give to all our listeners today before we
Yeah,
say goodbye?
I think, when it comes to wanting to get into this pharmaceutical industry, it's a great industry to get in. And I certainly encourage anyone who's interested to do all that you can to learn about it and network with a lot of people that are in the industry to understand that this is an industry that you'd want to be in. It's something that you will walk away being highly energized and motivated, feel like you're doing great work and meaningful work on a daily basis, and just continue to pursue the opportunities. And I think at this point, with not only the pharmaceutical industry, but any industry, but certainly the pharmaceutical industry, is about making sure that you network and build that
Hmm.
network, because as we all know, oftentimes it's not what you know, it's oftentimes who you know, because
Hmm.
anytime you oftentimes get an interview, and you're obviously getting an interview because you're qualified to do the job.
Hmm.
But if you're getting the interview and you're qualified to do the job, but you also have someone that's in your network that's helping, influence that hiring manager or speak on your behalf, that's going to give a person an edge up, right? So networking and leveraging those networks will be highly important to do.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Darren. It was excellent having you. And yeah, I'll be talking to you soon. We'll be following up with you and following this potential retirement track in about 5 to 6 years and
Yeah,
see
I hope
what board
so.
you end up on.
All right. Well, hey, Sam, I appreciate it. And best of luck to you as well. And we certainly will be in touch.
Definitely.
All
Definitely.
right. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you,
afternoon.
Darren. And that was Darren Leathers. He dropped so much wonderful information for everyone out there today. Really getting into what hiring managers consider when they're evaluating a candidate, regardless if the candidate's someone new to the industry or someone that's very seasoned and very familiar with the industry. And we went over a lot of things. I mean, we went over performance really speaks volumes compared to the degree someone has. However, having a degree when all things are even matters. We went over the job hopping. How do you explain and walk through your resume in a way that's attractive to a hiring manager? The experience you have and how well you performed in your current role or in the role you had previously. Having an entitlement mentality, right? Being able to say, even though I had these experiences, can I be coachable and open minded to something new? Researching a company and really taking the time to understand what a company is about before you go to interview, the grit and demonstrating the grit that you have to go out there and be successful, or at least do the things that create success each and every day. How hiring managers, when they're evaluating a candidate, they're really trying to mitigate the risk. They want to take on an asset to their team, someone that's going to move the business forward and provide even more value for patients and more value for their providers. And then the value of the medicine that's being brought to the patient. You really stepping in and owning whatever it is that you represent as the sales representative, and making sure that that message is communicated into everyone you're doing business with. These are all wonderful things that need to be considered for anyone that wants to get into pharmaceutical sales. Another thing, though, that I can't stress enough that Darren mentioned more than once is the power of networking. Now, networking is a word that's I probably hear more than any other word when it comes to getting a position in any field, especially in medical sales. But what does that actually mean, right? Networking doesn't just mean meeting someone and, that is that. Networking means building relationships. It means meeting someone and then taking the time to understand what they're about, being able to communicate clearly what you're about, finding synergy in that, and then keeping that relationship going. So then it no longer becomes this thing of, oh, you know what, I need something, so let me call this person so they can get it from me. It actually becomes more of, I have all these great relationships that I've taken the time to cultivate and develop with these amazing people, and I'm going to make sure I keep up with them. And if something comes up that they need, I'm going to be available. And if something comes up that I need, potentially they'll be available. And we're always going to do what we can to serve each other and keep this relationship going. One thing I'd like to do is I like to leave another challenge. You guys know I do this almost every episode, and I want to challenge you to think about your current network right now. Think about the relationships you have. Think about the people in your network. So as you're thinking about these people in your network, I challenge you to contact one person today and let them know how much you appreciate having the opportunity to know them and start a conversation or continue a conversation. One person. Think about someone in your network that you know you should contact, or you haven't contacted in a while, and it'd be great if you could and did. Contact them and let them know how much you appreciate them being in your network. Or phrase it however you like, whether it's them being in your network, the opportunity to get to know them, the fact that they're connected to you, however you want to phrase it, but let someone know. Feel free to visit the evolveyoursuccess.com website and leave a message by hitting the Send a Message tab at the bottom right and let us know that you actually took on this challenge and you contacted someone. We'd love to hear it. If you have a story to share with us, we can go ahead and sample it on our next episode and put it on our episode of the podcast. Again, a big shout out to Andrew and Melanie. You guys did an amazing job through the program, and now you have your positions, medical devices and pharmaceutical sales, and I'm so proud to announce that. And also, if you're looking to get a position and you've been thinking about getting into medical devices or pharmaceutical sales or genetic testing or lab sales, and you're looking for something to help you make it happen, don't hesitate to visit evolveyoursuccess.com and take the assessment. After you take the assessment, it's going to give you a great snapshot into what you can do to improve your medical sales search. And you can always schedule a call and find out how you can be part of our medical sales career builder program and get that next position. Again, thank you all for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. And remember to stay tuned for more amazing episodes. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.